Welcome back then to the Asylum on 107.3 Stafford FM. It's me, Gunnar, in the chair of destiny, joined this week by my able compatriot CK. How are you, fella?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, buddy. Not too bad. Looking forward to the brilliant interview we've got lined up tonight.
I'm very excited.
Good. On tonight's show, of course, probably the internet story of the year. Sensational. Been all across the newspapers, of course, if you're interested in this type of stuff. The story of the, I guess, three-fingered hybrid, the Peruvian mummy called Mera that's came out this year. Of course, tonight on the show, we welcome Mr. Barry Fitzgerald, of course. Barry Fitzgerald was lead investigator on the sci-fi paranormal investigative TV show Ghost Hunters International. He's got 3 decades of experience as an investigator of the supernatural, and he's got some amazing books out as well. Some of them are Banshee, In the Mist of Gods, The Council of Three, and The Malice of Darkness. Pretty much, Barry, I think I've got all of those books, haven't I?
Yeah, I think you have. Ian, yes.
Good. Barry, where can we find out more about your work and where we can get your books from?
If people pop onto my website at charmstealer.com, they'll find a huge array of information there.
Wicked. Charmstealer.com.
That's it, yes.
And, of course, we're joined by Mr. Steve Mera as well. Steve, of course, was drawn into the subject of UFOs and the paranormal at an early age, has been working professionally in the field for over 34 years. Not to kind of timestamp you there, Steve, or anything. After studying electrical engineering, telecommunications, sociology, psychology, and parapsychology, Steve became involved in writing for television shows, is regularly featured on over 100 subject-related TV programs, and has hosted a number of them himself. He's the author of 5 books, and he also co-authored The Rochdale Poltergeist, I should say, and House of Fire and Whispers, which was investigating the Seattle Demon House with our good friend, Mr. Don Phillips, as well.
That's correct, yes, yeah, that was an exciting event.
Well, that's where I met you, Barry, as well, and that was a very interesting week, I might add.
It certainly was, yes. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, I'm still traumatized by it now, buddy. Honestly, still get weird moments when I'm thinking whatever was in that house in Ireland, in Lachine House, is still around. But thankfully, it's no longer leaving voice messages. So, gents, of course, in June this year, 2017, the internet exploded with this mysterious mummy information that was coming out, of course, from Peru. It was known as the three-fingered hybrid. You guys, of course, went out to investigate this, didn't you?
We did, yeah. We first came to our attention back in the April, long before it appeared up on the internet. Okay. We were very curious about the photographs and so on and so forth. As for some of the other things, they'd been around a little bit longer. However, it first really got into the public domain by Gaia, who released a small documentary about it. And I think they've subsequently done 5 different episodes, I think, on the examination of one particular body. We decided we wanted to know what it was all about. We've seen a lot of this stuff before, as you can well imagine, Ian.
Yeah.
We've seen in the past, over the years, we've looked into all sorts of things. Be it the skinless raccoon that washed up on Montauk Beach, you know, and it was claiming it was the Montauk monster.
Yes, I remember that image.
Raccoon, yeah.
That was a classic.
I mean, all these scientists saying, "Oh, it's really, really unusual and it's profound," and it took one veterinarian surgeon to sort of seal the deal, you know. And then, of course, you've got skinless, tailless monkeys caught in traps, which turn out to be exactly that and nothing to do with what they were initially thought to be. Again, doctors putting forward information which is a little bit misleading as far as I'm concerned. And this has been going on for a long, long time, you know, and there are sensational stories, I believe. But you know what? Sensational stories require sensational evidence. And unfortunately, that usually falls short in such cases. So for this one, we thought, well, you know, enough's enough. You know, we need to, you know, really put a nail in this coffin to find out exactly. This could be a massive, massive sensational story if it was real. But we were really, really intrigued, absolutely intrigued, because on initially looking at at Mera, the body, the large body, if she was doctored or faked in any way, then, you know, it looks good. It looks good, I have to admit, compared to other things I've seen in the past, which are blatantly obvious fakes. But we really want to get to the bottom of it, and to do so, the only way to do that is to literally go there, because at the end of the day, you can't trust what people say. You can't trust what other doctors are telling you. You've got to go there. You've got to get the right amount of information. You've got to do your own examinations. You've got to get samples somehow. And you've got to have them professionally tested. There's got to be a chain of custody documented. It's got to be done scientifically. And it would seem so far nobody's done anything really scientifically, as far as I'm concerned.
So I'm guessing you're not prepared to take these doctors' words for it then? You're not prepared to take the furore on the internet and the research of the internet. You have to go there yourselves and find out with your very own eyes, with your very own, I guess, sample-taking research methods.
Well, that's it, yeah, because we've had doctors before in the past say, just like I mentioned earlier about these, raccoons and monkeys and all sorts of things. And, even mummified children. I mean, it's just, it gets ridiculous because, sometimes it's not what the doctors are saying, it's what they're not saying and what should be said.
Right.
This is a very, very clever way of doing this sometimes. It leads the people that watch it or the listeners to believe in a certain conclusion, that being that it might be extraterrestrial in origin. Or I mean, for me, an unknown means you need to do more analysis. To other people, an unknown means, oh my God, you don't know what it is, it's extraterrestrial. And it's all a play on words. It's a very clever method. It's utilized by doctors in this process. And basically, we're used to seeing that. Myself and Bob have seen this countless times over the years. And we wanted to eliminate that. We wanted to get away from that source of material and say, look, the only way we're going to know for sure is if it's dealt with properly, scientifically, and done by people that we know can be trusted to deliver the actual evidence, no matter what the outcome is.
Are we suggesting, Steve, that a man in a lab coat who seems to know what he's doing necessarily shouldn't be trusted then? That actually you need to, I guess, do the background research, just not into the subject itself, but also to him, in the sense that, because, anybody, let's be honest, could probably pay a few $1,000s and get any doctor to say whatever they wanted, couldn't they?
Well, I guess so. I mean, you don't have to be a genius. People that have gone to university together, they walk out when they pass the thing, they pass the courses as doctors. Anybody can do anything these days. I'm not saying that these aren't doctored. What I am saying is that you have to question them. You have to look at the how authentic are the doctors. Do they have a background? Are they registered? Are they all qualified to state what's saying? Where did it come from? Have they dealt with this type of analysis before? Are they conducting an analysis themselves? Is it third party and you don't know? Or do they have a connection with the people, the source material? You have a connection with the people that are running the investigation. It should be done independently, just as a police investigation would be. It has to be done independently, otherwise people would start asking questions.
Very true. So Barry, right, what are we dealing with here? What was discovered this year? You guys said that you became aware of it around March time. Obviously, we didn't see the first kind of release of that information till around June. What is it we're dealing with? What is Mera and were any other bodies discovered?
Yeah, there were just over 20 other bodies that were discovered in this alleged chamber in the Nazca Desert. Now, the Nazca Desert is very, very dry. And of course, the environment had helped aid this type of drying out that occurred. A lot of people will call them mummies, but they're not actually mummies. They are bodies, and certainly didn't suffer the same abuse as what would have happened with an Egyptian mummification process. But for us, we were introduced to this, and another key point I might add as well is that a lot of this is happening in the Spanish-speaking countries, which the English-speaking countries we were losing out quite a lot on that. So that was another key point on why Steve and I headed out, was to bring this information back to the English-speaking countries and share what we were finding, and this particular place that they were found, there's just as much mystery around that as the bodies themselves. But the bodies range in sizes from very small, from 12 inches, up to Maria's size, which was I think was around 5'6", 5'8". But the in-betweeners, these creatures that we were shown, they're around 25 inches tall, and these creatures have 3 fingers on each hand and 3 toes on each foot. And Maria, of course, is the best of those specimens, and her hands are quite something to see. But also with the bodies, we were also shown a series of large hands, three-fingered hands as well. Now these had been removed from the bodies. Now whether they were removed by the Huaqueros, which I might add, a Huaquero is a type of grave robber, whether they were responsible for removing the hands or whether this was done sometime in the distant past, we really can't be sure. But with the hands, the small heads, the small bodies, and then of course finally getting to see Maria was really something else.
I'm so jealous, and the story of how you got to see these bodies is quite crazy as well. It's quite insane. It's literally like you guys became Indiana Jones for a week. I love it. I think it's the best story ever. But this, I mean, it was kind of fraught with danger and turmoil right from the beginning, wasn't it? I mean, this is a story that started right here in the UK for you guys and took you all the way to the foothills of the Andes to find answers to one of the most amazing and divisive stories of 2017. Guys, you ran into trouble at the airport, didn't you? I mean, Steve, what was your missus thinking?
Well, she dropped us off there and she was shocked. Because the first thing we were met with is just crowds and crowds of people. First thing I thought is, oh my God, there must be celebrities here.
They're here for Barry. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Barry Fitzgerald.
Turned out to be that they've been in evacuation due to a suspicious package, which probably would turn out to be just somebody's left behind luggage. But nevertheless, though, it was a massive problem because there were thousands of people in these queues. And we started queuing outside Manchester Airport to get in. That tells you how long this queue was.
Wow.
We knew very quickly, we realised that no way we were going to catch our flight because just queues just weren't moving, just adding more and more people to it. But we had a cunning plan to try and sort of get ourselves ahead, and luckily we managed to scrimp and scrape our way forward bit by bit.
Do you wish to share with the listeners what this amazing... Because, I mean, two men of such high intelligence and of fine standing, of course, must have come up with the most amazing plan to get onto this plane. How did it go down?
Usually you just target the elderly and the feet.
The weak and the young, separate them off from the herd.
Sharpen your elbows and just get going.
Like a pack of lions.
I thought Barry body slamming a few, but basically what we did is there was a cafe right up at the top near the queue, top of the queue, Mera, I think it was, and I think one of them went up there and I rang and I was on my phone and I was kind of saying, "Where are you?" Talking very loud, so all the people in the queue.
Yeah.
"Oh, you're in Nero. I'm on my way up there now. I'm on my way up to the cafe. I'm on my way." And of course, I go up there and I'm pushing forward. I'm just getting to the cafe. I'm just getting to the cafe. Of course, straight into the cafe and straight out into the queue. Honestly, if we hadn't have done that, and that last 15-minute run with all the bags as well, taken into consideration, we'd have never boarded that flight, and it would have been failed right there and then, because everything was very delicately timed. When we were going out, plans and that sort of thing. So it would have been an absolute disaster if we hadn't caught that. So we were really lucky actually, because we found ourselves sat on the plane, puffing and panting. And I couldn't believe we'd actually made it. So we took off from Manchester Airport to travel to Madrid, it was really nice. It was about 38 degrees, I think. There, it was really warm, and then a very long haul flight. I think it was about 12 hours almost to Lima, the capital of Peru.
So you did that old, and I mean, I've never seen this in any Indiana Jones film, but you did that old "all my mates at the front of the queue" trick.
Kind of, yeah.
Sometimes you've got to do what you got to do.
Barry.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah. Oh no, I thought that was just what you were shouting. Steve was just shouting, Barry, and just negotiating his way to the front of the queue.
Exactly, that's it. And I just want to apologise to all those people and I'm very, very sorry. I do apologise. It was all in the need of making the documentary series. So.
To all at Manchester Airport, our sincere apologies. But it's a brilliant story, nonetheless. But that wasn't your only strange encounter, was it, at an airport? Because when you landed in Lima, something quite strange happened there, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Barry will remember that. We slightly separated. I was sat down. I think you were just round the corner. And,
I was trying to charge my
your phone.
cell.
Yeah, and we were approached by a lady, and I didn't know who this was at first, and we'd been talking quite open, which we did. We talked quite openly about what we were doing, and we didn't think anything of it until the person came over and kind of went, shush, don't talk about that sort of stuff. There's people listening. The Peruvian government are very keen to talk with people who are involved in this particular investigation, and we could land ourselves in real trouble. And I was like, it was a bit of a joke at first, but no, it wasn't. She'd been deadly serious.
Oh my goodness! So literally everything got really, really serious, really, really quickly.
It did, actually. Yeah, it was very cloak and dagger. I get a bit giggly when I get nervous. I just go to Barry for the support.
I think it's the right amount of intrigue to start with, though, isn't it? I mean, if it starts that way, it's going to be a good ride.
I have to say that it was once we landed in Peru, it became apparent to us that that nearly everyone that was associated with this particular phenomena had their agenda.
Yeah.
And this was something that Steve and I, it was a very tight learning curve that we had to form when we finally got our feet onto the ground.
I can imagine. I mean, you guys get there, you're literally having a conversation about it, and all of a sudden somebody comes up and goes, be careful of what you talk about, you could end up in jail.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Or worse. Yeah.
Well, it didn't get worse. It got more intriguing and more interesting. We'll come back in a couple of sex, chaps, and we'll pick up the story from there.
Okay.
Welcome back then, the Asylum on 107.3 Stafford FM. Get in touch with us tonight as we interview Barry Fitzgerald and Steve Mera about the three-fingered Peruvian mummy, Mera, and of course all of the bodies that were found alongside it as well. You can get in touch with us at the One Asylum on Twitter, at We Are SFM on Twitter, or just find us on Facebook, the Asylum, or simply Stafford FM. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome back to the show.
Good evening.
So we've made it, luckily we've made it from Manchester all the way through to Lima, where you've had an incredible experience with somebody who's literally very cloak and dagger told you not to really talk about this stuff too much. And this is before you've left to go to Cusco, isn't it? Because you then take a connecting flight to Cusco, gents.
Yes, a 90-minute flight, I believe it was. And that was okay. It was a really nice flight. I mean, it was over the Andes. You could see the ice and the snow on top. That's all literally you could see for miles and miles. Of course, we landed at a very small, probably the smallest airport I've ever seen. Very tight, curved, straight in landing. And of course, once we stepped off the plane, that was when I realised, oh my God, there's no air. No. I mean, I was already puffing and panting by the time I got off the plane anyway. Hoping, oh God, I can't wait to get off this plane and get some fresh air. There wasn't any air. And it was so thin. I mean, I didn't realise that we travelled upwards and higher to Cusco, which is around, I think, about 11,000 feet. And the air is thin. And that hit me straight away. It was really weird sensation of trying to breathe in and get a lot of air and not really being satisfied with what you're getting. And that did cause a problem. It did cause a problem for us throughout the whole investigation in Peru, in Cusco, sorry. And the reason being is because it was out of breath, losing your breath, lightheadedness, just not being able to physically do some things that you'd really like to do, even if you just want to quicken the pace. I remember bending down to tie my shoelace one day and I was like puffing and panting. And then I watched some 75-year-old Peruvian woman run past.
Yeah.
Uphill as well, and I think, oh my God, how did he do it? So the obviously climate. But that led to altitude sickness. We were feeling there was vomiting, a lot of vomiting involved. It wasn't good, and we had to have cocoa tea, but it didn't really last very long. And of course, we were suffering from altitude sickness through the whole process of the whole investigation whilst we were there. So that was something to have to. I've never had to handle that well as do what I'm doing, but yeah, it was problematic numerous times.
I'm guessing, Steve, that altitude sickness doesn't really affect you in the foothills of sort of Manchester, really. not quite in the same way, anyway.
No, not at all. That's the first time I've ever experienced it, to be honest. I think Barry might have experienced it before, haven't you, Barry?
Yeah, I have. That was I think that was my third or fourth time in Peru, and I think the highest I have ever been, I think, was around 14,500 feet, and that was in the Andes in Peru. But it's Steve's right. Like once you step off the plane, it's hey, we're here, and then all of a sudden you have to grip the rail on the way out of the plane, because suddenly your head's going light. So it does take quite a while to get used to, and our time period within Cusco was short, so we never actually got the time to acclimatize properly before we were back down to sea level.
Wow, so you guys are just thrust straight into it, and if it wasn't already potentially a life and death situation, it's even more so when you're suffering with altitude sickness, because this must really screw with your brain, and in trying to conduct an investigation under difficult, I guess, parameters, difficult stresses.
I think the headaches are the worst. It's exceptionally severe headaches that can really affect your day, and of course that then promotes the nausea and then the vomiting. So it is something that and you got to be very, very careful of it, because it will make you very ill, and so you need to nurse yourself through it.
I'm glad you made it back, boys, because this story is amazing. So what happened next? So you've got to Peru, you've got to Cusco, I should say, and you're ready basically now. I mean, you then go to see the guys from the Ikari Institute. What is the Ikari Institute, and who were they?
Well, I think the first thing we noticed was just the trip from the airport to the hotel. Now, this is Peru, remember, this is Cusco, so we realised very quickly that everybody presses the horns, no matter what reason. It's just like Barry said, beat Peru, and that's exactly the truth. There's no reason. I mean, even your own taxi driver, you just pressing his horn. There's nobody in front of it. There's no reason for it. They just do it. Apart from that, nobody has any road sense whatsoever. Barry had a wonderful way of saying, explaining to people about the traffic light signals, didn't you?
Yeah, it's pretty much if you wait for the green man before you cross the road, it's either you're not quite sure, do you cross when the green man appears, or is that an indication that God is ready to receive you now? You really are. You're not quite sure. And riding a bicycle in Cusco, forget it, because there is, as Steve says, there's no road sense. We were there. My goodness, 3-4 days, and I still don't understand one law of the road. Because they were driving on both sides of the road to oncoming traffic, going down one-way streets the wrong way. I had no idea what on earth was going on. So you just really had to try and calm your fears, and let go of the seat.
Let go of the seat, stop biting it. I mean, realize, some of these taxis that we saw, there was bits hanging off, dragging on the floor behind them. I've never seen cars. I've seen better looking cars in the skips. I mean, it's really, I don't know how they managed to stay on the road. And to top it all, something was slushing around behind me, and I turned round to find that the actual petrol tank had got an extended petrol tank, and we're literally sat on it. It's right behind us. And it's huge, and it's slushing backwards and forwards. And in the corner, down at the back in the corner, you can see this tiny little fire extinguisher. And I'm thinking to myself, there'll be nothing left of us, let alone.
You've got to climb over what's on fire to get to the fire extinguisher.
yeah, pretty much.
The fire extinguisher's more of a warning flare. It just gets fired up.
Just expelled out the back, like, oh, there's another one.
Yeah, but we managed to get to the hotel, and that was good. But we literally had like maybe 20 minutes or something like that before we literally had to meet up with the people from the Inkari Institute to interview them. Yeah. And there was no time. It was straight into the hotel room, literally get changed, and out you go. We were still suffering from jet lag and altitude sickness, and we just thought, God, we're just going to go for this. So anyway, we managed to do that, and it was a very interesting interview. Barry managed to do some excellent filming of the interviews, and we met up with I think was it three of the Inkari Institute, I think it was, wasn't it, Barry?
That's right. Yeah.
And we conducted interviews from them. First, Thierry Hamming, who was the president of the Inkari Institute. Now, people aren't too sure what the Inkari Institute are. They're an establishment that investigates archaeological sites and digs and things like that, and they go on these excursions, most of which have been in the area of the Amazon. And apparently they've done some excellent work. We were shown photographs and given information as to the great work that they've conducted in different locations of the Amazon and the discoveries that they've made so far, which was very interesting because even the Peruvian government had recognized Thierry's work because they released a commemorative coin. And on the back of this coin, I think there was 12 million of these coins made. And on the back of these coins was a petroglyph, which Thierry had discovered. So it was good to know that that the Peruvian government were recognizing the Inkari Institute for what they do. And we also talked with a couple other members from the Inkari Institute, and they had a really interesting story to tell.
That's an understatement, Steve.
Tell me more about that, I suppose.
So you meet up. You've literally been there 15 minutes. You're still out of breath. Still, fatigued from the flight, from the huge amounts of traveling that you've done, and you're thrust into the most amazing conversation with some representatives of the Inkari Institute. Now, the Inkari Institute, as you say, is a legitimate organisation that looks into, I guess, these archaeological finds and this type of stuff. You had was it a lady from Nexus, I believe, who was kind of translating for you, and about three guys, and he said Thierry was one of them. Edward Valenzuela, I think, was another chap as well, and they told you the most incredible story, didn't they, guys?
They did, yeah. And in particular, we were fascinated by where these bodies were found, because with this amazing story that was unfolding, we were very intrigued by this area that they were found in, because there were reports of this huge magnetic anomaly that was also within that particular area, that the bodies were found. And not only that, but the magnetic anomaly seemed to be that powerful that it affected cameras and electronics. Ooh. And this seemed to be something as well which seemed to reflect with the bodies as well. So we got very, very curious with that, because although we were pushing them for what's the information on the tomb, where were they found, they wouldn't come forward directly and give us that particular information. They kept holding back on that aspect. But using science, we were able to go ahead and find out where is the magnetic anomaly that appears in that area. And
good work.
We found it.
Good work.
But that's for part 2.
Teasers.
Come on.
He's well versed at this, Chris. He knows what he's doing.
I tell you what.
But it was really, really intriguing, to hunt for this magnetic anomaly.
That's up my street.
See the effects. To see the effects that the guys were reporting, and not only that, but within the chamber, whenever they had gone into the chamber, there were other creatures that were seen allegedly alive within the chamber, that they headed off into tunnel systems that led off from the chamber. Wow. And where the bodies were found. Now, these creatures were only around 25, 26 inches tall, but they were very much alive, according to their reports. and they ventured off into the various different tunnel systems. And this is something I got to add, Ian, that we also find evidence of these particular types of creatures right around this planet. It's not just Peru. We find them all over the planet in various different tales from our ancestors and everything else. There is weight behind this myth, which brings us right into the modern age.
What kind of creatures are we talking about? Are they like bipedal, or are they, quadrupeds? Are they,
No, they're bipedal, but they have three long fingers, and three long toes on each appendage. Now, if from Steve and I's perspective, we eventually did get to see the bodies. We'll come to that in a moment, but there are some aspects of it that we're not quite sure about. But from a historical context, we also have these descriptions of these creatures right into the modern age. In fact, right into the UK. We have tracked these particular things down to be involved with one of the most famous abduction cases within the UK that the Ministry of Defence were investigating. These creatures were involved.
Wow. Which case was that?
That's for part 2.
Oh, here he goes again. Here he goes again. I had no idea you would be such a challenge.
Oh, so cagey.
So cagey, I know. So the Akari Institute themselves haven't found these creatures. They've been delivered to the Akari Institute with the story of how they were discovered. Is that right?
Well, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, apparently, according to Thierry Hamming, that these bodies were literally dropped on his counter, and the discoverers basically said two things. The first one was where they discovered them, what they'd seen, and did the Akari Institute want to conduct analysis, find out exactly what they were. And the second thing was just to hammer home the fact is that they do still own them. They weren't relinquishing these to the Akari Institute. It was kind of, they're there for a short period of time until they can get some answers. And at any given moment, they can come and collect them and take them away. And that's kind of part of the agreement, I believe. And of course, Thierry Hamming and the Akari Institute were kind of thrown into a whirlwind of internet information all over. It just went ballistic. And of course, ended up being caught right up in the middle of it all, because people who initially thought maybe that they were the discoverers, but no, they weren't. There was apparently these discoverers brought it to them. And not just one body, but numerous ones and bits and bobs. And that's how it kind of come to light. And of course, from then on, numerous other people got to hear about these things and started looking into the authenticity of the bodies themselves.
Now, I was going to say this, Steve, because the big discussion, of course, straight away was they were kind of presented as, is this possibly an alien race or a hybrid race? And they kind of put out there. But the other, obviously, the internet very quickly decided they must be a hoax. If they are a hoax, then that's an incredible risk, isn't it, to take them to an actual institute and get them to give them the once over? Would that, it could either provide validity, I guess, to the case, or actually destroy it out and out.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Also what you've got to take in consideration is what's going on in the background, because it was seen from what we've discovered that there was a price tag on some of these bodies. Maria, for example, was $1 million.
Wow.
Wow.
The 24-inch, 25-inch bodies were about $120,000 each.
Wow.
Where those figures are coming from is because what we didn't realise at the time is that we kind of stumbled onto the black market. We didn't realise there was a black market, an illegal underground operation, a black market for selling these artifacts overseas.
So I guess hoodwinking some scientists then, or an institute like the Akari Institute, potentially, if they are fake, could potentially drive the price of these things up.
Well, this is the whole thing. The more mysterious that they might be, it's going to gain interest, and they're going to maybe get sales. We were already informed that one particular item was sold as little as $8,000 to, and that was over to Asia, somewhere in Asia.
Now, Steve, what was that? Because hasn't this got a connection to the Roswell case from 1947?
Well, what we're told is there were two sheets of metal which was found in one of these tombs, and one of the sheets of metal was described as silver in colour and very, very thin. And when you apply force to it, you could crinkle it up and then it would retain its shape. Again, literally open up and no creases, nothing, it'd be flat, as it would be.
Like a memory alloy, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we had heard about things like this before during the Roswell incident. However, there's two way how you could perceive this, because is a body manufactured because of the stories and myths and information about alien beings being like that, or is it the other way around? So just as was this manufactured to a story to generate the interest because of what's been known in regards to Roswell, or is it the other way around? We don't really know.
It's kind of a chicken and the egg question, isn't it?
Exactly, it's a chicken and the egg situation, yeah. And this is a problem for us because we wouldn't know. But what we did do is we just made sure that we got all the information down as much as we possibly could. Continuing to when we were interviewing them, they went on to tell us about the tomb. We were told that it was in the location of Nazca, which we know is a very dry environment. Also that this tomb they went down into, they dug away and they went into this I think it said about 10 feet down, and it opened into like a tomb area. There was a couple of sarcophagi, should we say, one of which was opened and revealed apparently bodies, small bodies. The discoverers also claimed that they saw a number of these running away in adjacent tunnels. There were skulls around, and of course, partially buried was also two bodies, one of which was Mera, a full-size body, and one was known as Wikita or Wirita, which is they describe it as a baby, which was also they're more interesting as far as I'm concerned as to the smaller ones. But it was a very intriguing story, and we got it all down on record. This is what the people at Inkavi Institute have been told from the discoverers. So they were kind of caught up in the middle of all this. And we asked them, do you still have these bodies? He said, no, they've been taken back by the discoverers. So really, we were kind of, we're not gonna get to see these things. I mean, we hadn't planned to. We just planned to get all the information we possibly could and interview as many people as we could. We never dreamt that we might even have the opportunity of seeing these, considering how Peruvian government were. I mean, Barry will tell you what the Peruvian government were like. It was terrible.
Oh my God. It was ridiculous. And I got to say that Steve and I were out there for answers. We weren't going to waste our time. Sleep was for the dead. And we were out there. We had a deadline, and we were out there to get as much information as possible. But there comes a time whenever you need to weigh up your options, and even when it came to the chambers that these bodies were found in, the more we pressured to get more information, and that we were willing to travel to Nazca to see these, then finally it was laid on the table in front of us that we would be shot. That we would simply disappear in the desert, and that would be it. People take it very seriously. There is, as Steve has already pointed out, there is a very lucrative black market in operation here that we had uncovered, and they will defend that little piggy bank. So this is something that we were competing against as well.
So, I mean, you guys have been literally in Cusco for about half an hour. You're having an interview with the Ikari Institute. They've told you an incredible story of the finders of these objects, who claim that they've seen entities running away in the tomb underneath, that some 90% of this tomb is still uncovered, that you are on the cusp of what could potentially be a life-changing and world-changing discovery. that these guys, if it's real, are bringing forward that could affect religion, politics, the whole fabric of the world in which we live. I mean, the answer, if it was real, if these were alien bodies, the answer of course, aliens would be answered straight away, wouldn't it? So what are you guys thinking at this point? Are you thinking about taxi to the airport because you're involved in all of this sort of stuff? Or are you thinking, let's get as much information as we can?
Well, I did have a discussion with Barry. We don't take things anything lightly, but my eyes lit up when they heard the fact that we might be able to find a location.
Steve.
And but we went back and we talked with our team back here in the UK, and we did some research. We had some guys doing some research, and the result came back is we cannot do it. We would disappear.
Yeah.
It was that serious. People had been killed. People had been shot before. There were records and information about such incidents that had been like that taking place. It was just too dangerous. I mean, we even talked about logistics, didn't we, Barry, about going there? And of course, what would we need in the desert? Because, we can't just take a load of equipment. We're going to need certain types of power. It'd have to be solar powered, to power batteries. We'd have to have a huge amount of water with us. Barry asked how good I was at riding a horse. Honestly, there was some serious consideration about this.
I've just got an idea of you at the back, Steve, on a little donkey. Just wheezing, going, how far are we? 8,000 feet, Steve. Just keep going.
Bob, it's just too dangerous, guys. There is a really good possibility that we may have not returned, and we've got to draw a line somewhere in the sand and say, look, enough's enough, and we can't put our lives at danger too much,
No, it's a very tough place to go there.
I mean, you've been, of course, Chris, haven't you? You've travelled all around South America, so, I mean, you've told me some incredible stories when you've been out there as well.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, Nazca it's just a big wasteland, really. You know, there's just nothing around. There's the odd tourist trap here and there, but that's pretty much it for miles and miles and miles. And there's mountains and all kinds of stuff there.
So guys, what happened then when you finished this interview with the Akari Institute?
Well, we went back to the room. We had a discussion. I was doing updates because we made a plan for me to try and do a video diary.
Yeah.
Now, there was a good reason why we did that, because we wanted to let people know step by step where we were and what we were doing, because, we don't know what we were heading into, so there was a little issue. However, it would seem, this sounds a bit strange, some of the postings I was going up on Facebook and numerous other places were somehow disappearing.
Oh.
We don't actually know why. And even I went back and looked later and I thought, that's strange, because it was there, the posting was there, I saw it. I think even a number of people had replied on it.
Yeah, I remember seeing them, Steve.
And they just seemed to disappear. But I was determined to try and get a video diary along. By the time we'd finished that, it was the early hours of the morning and we were tired, and this is the first time we'd had a proper sleep since all that flight and the way we were feeling as well. Plus, it's also uncomfortable because with the altitude, there's a slightly different pressure. And of course, even though I was absolutely starving, my stomach was swollen. It looked like I'd swallowed a donkey, and I was just I just went to bed. But then we got disturbed, and I'll tell you what, it was 2:14 a.m. I know exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You saw that clock right in front of your eyes, didn't you?
Listen, my mobile phone rings in a foreign country, mate, and knowing that it's not coming from home, I thought, aye. What's going on here? Who's ringing me? It's got to be a funny number or something. Can't be a PPI call, surely.
Have you been missold PPI?
Yeah. I picked up the phone. There was a guy there on the other end of the phone, clearly from Peru, not brilliant on English. And basically, I don't know who it was, and he wouldn't really tell us. He just basically given us the opportunity to actually see. Or see something, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we might be able to see the bodies. But then I'm nudging Barry, and he woke up, and I'm sort of nodding up and down to Barry. Oh, look, who's on the phone? And he goes on to say, look, we have the opportunity to we can be picked up from the hotel the following day at 4:00, but there are conditions. And I went, tell me the conditions. Conditions were we weren't allowed to film this driver, weren't allowed to identify the vehicle, and we weren't allowed to really conduct any filming. And most of all, we weren't even allowed to take our cell phones.
Wow.
And he went, and I just went, yeah, okay.
I knew this.
See you tomorrow.
I knew this to be you, Steve. You're just like me. You're like an excited 10-year-old.
Yeah.
You're just like so. Some guy phones in the middle of the night, doesn't tell you who he is, tells you that you can go and see something, but he doesn't tell you what you could see. Suggests that you could be driven out to the middle of the desert and or the Andes Mountains, and that you can't take any cell phones, any camera equipment, or nothing. And you logically just say yes.
What other answer is there, Gunnar?
We'd already been warned about using cell phones. Myself and Barry weren't communicating with each other by cell phone. We weren't sending texts or anything like that because we thought they might be being intercepted. You just don't know, do you? At the end of the day, at the end, we do know the Peruvian government had really stepped their march to try and hunt these things down. They'd already done police raids throughout the city of Cusco. Hadn't come up with anything as yet, and they were all over this thing. So I well imagine that they were probably trying to find out any angle they could get to get some information. So we were very cautious about using mobile phones. However, I just went, yeah, no problem. And I said, Barry, what's happening? And then there was this silence, and just to me went, what have he said yes? Suddenly dawned on us that, oh my God. And the first thing that entered my mind was, we can't tell the girls back home because that'll be it. We'll have to go back there. So we had to keep it very, very quiet between us, really. But we were in for a pound, in for a penny, should we say. We didn't want to go all the way back to the UK without anything. But at the same time, I didn't realise actually what we made. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have do that again.
But what I want to ask Barry, right? Just describe those seconds after Steve comes off the phone, after agreeing to whatever it is agreed to. Just explain the terror to me.
The terror that went through my mind was, I haven't even told the wife about this.
She thinks I've gone down the shop for a bottle of milk.
She's going to kill me.
So you're more scared of the wife than you are of being vanished in the desert. I understand that completely.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm guessing at this point, Barry, you just sort of poured a steady whiskey.
yeah, that's all you can do. The decision was made, and that was that. Now I had voiced my concern to Steve, of all the things that could go wrong, and I think for the rest of the night, none of us slept for the rest of the night.
I remember jumping up though and saying, "Don't worry, Barry. I've got a watch that records." And then I realised halfway through the trip the damn thing wouldn't work.
And I was thinking, can we strangle the driver with a watch?
Yeah. So surely enough, the driver turned up at 4 o'clock to pick us up, and we were just looking at anybody who was coming in. We thought it was this person, and it turned out to be no, that was somebody for somebody else. And eventually, the guy walked up to us and said, he just nodded at us and said, for the taxi for us. Went, oh right, okay. And we got in this car, and off we went. He knew exactly where we were going. We didn't have a clue. We did have the cameras with us, and we said, look, can we do a little bit of filming? And at first, he shook of a head of no. And he wasn't even talking much. Maybe I just didn't talk much English, but he seemed to understand us about, well, can we film or not? Mm. And then we pressed him, and we said, well, can we just do a bit of filming on the way on this way up this hill and this, that, and the other. So we managed to. He was concentrating on the roads, and we managed to get a little bit of filming in. I don't think half the time he realised we were doing so. But then my stomach started to churn a little bit when I realised that, hang on a second, we're leaving Cusco. We're leaving the actual city. Ooh. And we were heading up, and this went on and on. And I was really getting impatient, because I'm like thinking, God, how long is this trip? About 45 minutes in, we're still going up and up and up on the top of these bloody mountains. And honestly, I was getting short of breath. Even the car was starting to struggle occasionally, because there was just not enough oxygen to keep the bumming engine running half the time. And I suddenly realised, because I had in my head that he's just going to stop in a minute and they're going to put blindfolds on us or bags over our heads. Suddenly realised why they might not have done, because we got up on top of those mountains, and it must have been about 14,000 feet because I was really struggling to breathe. And there's nothing up there but dirt roads. There's no signs. There's nothing.
Wow.
And even if I can remember, I couldn't tell you where I was. No way, no idea. Every single road looked the same. It's just over the top of the mountains. I remember seeing condors. We stopped and filmed a condor, and it was great to see, and it was amazing. But I got this thing in the back of my mind of, oh my God, where are we going, and how far is the journey? And we conducted a little bit more filming. I briefly talked to the camera, and Barry put it on me, and I was just explaining. But then all of a sudden, we kind of got this sign from the driver, like, cutthroat sign, stop filming.
Oh, God.
I'm hoping it was stop filming, or I'm going to cut you.
At this point where Barry starts to take off your watch. Just to be on the safe side, like sizing it up.
Yeah,
I mean, but the terror, it must have been an amazing experience and utterly beautiful to see. But there must have been an undercurrent of terror within you both, thinking, "What are we getting ourselves into here?"
Oh, there was an undercurrent, all right. I gotta say, but we were there. We were there to do a job, and a lot of that professionalism was trying to kick in. I don't know if it was an attempt to stop us from opening the doors and rolling out, and running for the mountain, but. I think a part of that, we were there on a great adventure as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that, was our grounding, I suppose, in a way to try and keep control, think rationally, and just keep that watch slack in your wrist.
Yes. And next time, buy a gun. Just be on the safe side,
When we got eventually turned off the cameras, I was thinking we're only 5 minutes away. We weren't. We were about 15, 20 minutes away.
Oh, okay.
So really sure. And when we pulled up to a building which looked like an old run-down warehouse type thing, there was people kind of stood around outside giving us the old stares. Barry tried to appease them by giving them sweets.
Good work, Barry. Good work.
Always a good shout.
It was a good show. And of course, there were scrapping wild dogs outside. It was like a secret horror film. It really was.
Like Hostel.
When we went into this place, we were taken from one room, which it was an old run-down place, into this other room, through this door into another room. It was like a completely different building. It was like a surgical room. It was clean. It was tidy. It was well lit. It was like an operating theatre. You had to put all the instruments around them. And basically, I realised there and then that, oh my God, we're going to see something here.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that in the wildest dream, but and I looked over at Barry, and I think Barry's quite surprised really, because we just do these like cupboards and things, and these things were opened up, and we were immediately instructed that we had to take out certain, our jackets off and put specialised clothing on, and gloves on, and hats on, and face masks on, and I just said to Barry, I said, "Oh my God, just keep that camera running."
So they dressed you in surgical gown, basically, face mask, latex gloves, that type of stuff.
Yeah,
everything.
That must have been. The terror. I can only imagine, because you've travelled for however long up the mountain. You've come to what looks like a rundown warehouse. You then step inside, and in some crazy kind of underworld, corrupt kind of crazy sort of situation. In the middle of it, there seems to be almost like a surgical theatre or a well-kept room where... So, this seemingly is a pretty professional operation. It's not just a bunch of guys, there's money behind this and they know what they're doing.
That makes it more worrying.
Yeah,
actually.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you're like, oh, God.
We weren't just dealing with people who are just out for a few quid here.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a very well-organised, a bunch of people which, we didn't... I'm thinking, okay, the whole point of us, there was a bit of good point to this, is that they were allowing us to see these. And I thought, okay, if they're allowing us to see these, can we do a little bit of filming? And of course, that entered into a massive big conversation. What's the point? I got a bit. Then Barry was sort of probably thinking, I shouldn't press it. Do you know what I mean? But I was saying, look, what's the point of coming all the way here? What is the point of all this? We can't know who's going to believe us. Who's going to believe us? No one's going to believe us. It's a waste of time, wasn't it?
Well, in for a penny, in for a pound, Steve. I don't know if that translates to Peru, but But you're there, aren't you? I mean, you're on the cusp of seeing something that literally, I mean, I guess you've probably never seen anything like that in your life. If it was real, if it is real, then no one's ever seen anything like this potentially in the public eye. So you've got an opportunity here for research that I'm guessing at this point you're thinking, oh, what's life anyway? Let's just get it done. You know, what's the worst that can happen?
I'm more concerned about others. I'm more concerned about Barry, you know, and he's probably was concerned about me. But the thing is, I just didn't want to walk away from that place without. I was sort of throwing it back at them, saying, "Why on earth are we coming? What's the? Nobody was going to believe us. We can't document it." And by a funny turn of events, we kind of managed to swindle our way into filming the damn thing, and I just couldn't believe it. And once we were doing it, we really did take advantage of that. We probably pressed it a bit too much on a few occasions. You know, because there was definite warnings that just do not put any of them on film. Not the camera was not even point towards them, because they had like sharp instruments around them, you know, like scalpels and things, and there was no way I was doing that. And I just said, Barry, just stick it on me and don't move off me. What you don't realise is there's a hell of a lot of people stood behind Barry.
Yeah.
You don't see that film, but they're there and they're watching him, and they're close to him. So I was really concerned about that, you know. But you know, we were really surprised. I mean, and again, just another surprise after another. They opened up these cupboards and out came, in a chronological order of size, bodies.
So these guys bought out Maria and the other, I guess, the bodies as well. I mean, you mentioned earlier Barry, these aren't mummies. What's the difference? Why would we say one was a mummy and one wasn't?
Well, you see, mummies, the idea of the Egyptian mummy, of course, is that they're bound and the internal organs are removed and put into jars. This didn't happen with these bodies. The internal organs were still very much there. The body itself had dried out, and that of course really was helped by this white coating that was added to them. And you know, going out there was huge speculation on the net. A lot of people shouting and yelling that it was plaster, it was cement. And things like that. But you know, Steve and I found out that no, it was not plaster or cement. The covering itself is called diatomite, and it's a component from when Peru was part of the ocean floor. And it is a siliconous stone, and when that enters water, it starts breaking down. Now, we're not saying that they were covered, you know, that they were buried in this particular earth that had the diatomite, but what we're saying is that they were purposely covered in this stuff. Almost like it was painted on. Now, as Steve has pointed out before, that can hide a lot of sins. But on principle, that can actually aid the drying out process. If for instance, if you consider spraying that type of stuff on to, say, ants, for instance, it pierces the exoskeleton and makes beef jerky of their internal organs.
Whoa!
So it is very, very, very good for that, and would effectively aid in the mummification, that drying out process. So that's what we were seeing from that standpoint.
Gentlemen, I'm going to hold you there, and when we come back in a couple of seconds, we'll get into exactly what happened when these bodies were brought out, the studies that you did, the way that you felt, of course, and we'll pick up the story in a few seconds. Okay.
Okay.
Welcome back then to the Asylum on 107.3 Stafford FM. It's me, Gunnar, joined by CK today, my able compatriot. Today we've got Steve Mera and Barry Fitzgerald, two UK investigative researchers who went out to Peru to have a look at what is possibly the biggest story of this year in this field. Of course, we're talking about the three-fingered Peruvian mummy, or Mera. Now, guys, you told us an incredible story of turning up in Peru, the kind of cloak and dagger scenario that's kind of unfolding in front of you, late night phone calls. I mean, the intrigue and mystery is off the charts. But then to make it even more strange, you've ended up driving for hours into the middle of the mountains, come across an incredible sort of location. It looks like an old disused factory, and inside seemingly is almost like a surgical theatre, let's say, or, a very clean and well prepped room. And you're then presented with quite possibly was one of the most amazing experiences of your lives, I'd imagine, boys. Tell us about it. What happened?
We didn't expect to be shown bodies in the first place, but when the first one came out, it was only 12 inches in length, and I had a look at it. Barry was looking at it. I was looking at it. We looked at each other with a bit of a puzzled face, and we both realised very, very quickly that this was fake. This was a small twig-like body with a fish's head, clearly identifiable. And I didn't realise actually what I was doing. I kind of looked up at these guys all stood behind Barry, and I went, "This is fake." And it just this pause in the air, and I thought, "Oh my God, should I have said that?" And then luckily one of them said, "Yes, we believe it is."
Oh God, thank God
for that. And then I kind of went, okay, so we looked at it a little bit further, and they explained they brought out x-rays and scans they'd had of these things as well, and which was good because they had an x-ray thing up on the wall as well. It was really well equipped. So I put this up on the wall. I said, "Get the camera on me, Barry," and of course we both looked at these bodies, and Barry was identifying anomalies with these things because you just didn't. It wouldn't have been able to function as a living body. This thing, like I said, it had a fish's head, and with them agreeing with us, it was quickly put aside. Now I can only think that we've kind of been tested.
Mm.
I think if we turn around and went, "That's fantastic," and this, that, and the other, I mean, I don't know how that would have gone really, but we call it as it is. We always meant to, and when we did, I was really relieved to the fact that they actually agreed with us, and I was a bit puzzled by that, and I thought, okay, well, why are they presenting it? And the only thing I can think of is that it was like a test. We were being tested or something. Then it got interesting because they brought out the smaller bodies, larger bodies, which were up to 24, 25 inches in length, and two full bodies, which they claimed one was female and one was male. I don't know how they made that comparison, really, only because of the obvious thing is that one seemed to have a swollen abdomen and claimed had 3 eggs inside her. Of course, up on X-ray, you can see that. And we were still thinking, okay, well, it doesn't really mean it constitutes it as a female. But there was some slight differences between the male and female, if that's what you want to call these things. Male seems to have a longer neck, which might have been able to be adjusted up and down, a bit like Steven Spielberg's E.T. in a sense of speaking. And of course, they had elongated heads, didn't seem to have any ears, it's a slit for a mouth, no noses, large eye sockets, which seemed to, I don't know if they were packed or that through the actual eye, I'm not too sure, but we did our best we could, analysing and looking and examining these things. They had 3 fingers, 3 toes, very rigid. We took sizing, measurements, weight. We took an examination of the X-rays, 360-degree photographs. We did as much as we possibly could, but at the end of the day, we're not anatomical professionals. We're not doctors. We're just there to try and give our professional opinion as best as we possibly can, and the knowledge that we have over the years. And we couldn't call it, though it was suspicious, because I think Barry pointed out that, I think it was mentioned about the joints, didn't you, Barry?
Yeah. There were no obvious ball joints on the arms and the legs, and it's been able to move would have been very, very restrictive, if not painful. It would have been sawing at its inside like a fish in a sushi bar. But and also to that as well. Not only did we not see the ball joints, but the bones themselves. They weren't. They were knitted. They were knitted together. So these weren't infants per se. They were adults. But we were just very, very curious of what we were seeing. We weren't being, let's say, we weren't falling for anything. At this stage, we were still very much middle of the road, and we were seeing things within the X-rays that we were querying why the doctors weren't asking these questions either. So there were things that just weren't adding up for us.
See, I mean, you said, Barry, these things clearly looked fake. Were you able to see how these, I guess, were joined together? Were they small, let's say, childlike humans, and they were pretty much anatomically correct? But you said they got no ball joints. Or are they a collection of bones that have almost been stitched together to form what looks like a human?
Well, the 12-inch one was bits and pieces of this and bits and pieces of that. Especially when you get a look at the X-ray and things like that, nothing works within it. The other ones, there were some discrepancies, yes, with the 26-inch ones, but there were other things as well which had us scratching our heads. You know, there were some pieces of metal that were somewhere under the skin. Some were, of course, were very obvious on the outside of the bodies. There were some changes within the skulls. There were some cranial ridging within some of the skulls, and some of the ridging was different in other skulls. And so those were the things that we weren't quite sure about. And as Steve points out, you know, we're not experts in that field. All we can do is bring back this information and let our experts see what they think. But there were things there that we were able to see that, wait a minute, this doesn't seem to look right.
Yeah, there was quite a number of bodies we were shown. That moved on to some large hands, 3 large hands, which Barry mentioned earlier, just with 3 fingers, 6 appendages within the finger as opposed to our 3. Some of them seemed to have nail on the end of them as well, which was intriguing. And again, some metal on some of them on the top palm of the hand. Part of the hand, it looked like some type of copper gold coloured disc. Yeah,
I saw that on the documentary. It looked amazing, like almost as if it had been stamped on the back of the wrist.
Yeah, very unusual, very unusual. And
copper and gold is very intriguing. It just reminded me that when the Spanish first arrived in Cusco, they saw that the Great Temple was covered in gold, but when they melted it down, they found that it was copper mixed with gold. In order. Yeah, so it's just a very interesting that maybe something in the metallurgy there.
We're saying it was that colour. We don't know exactly until the analysis comes back, but we did manage to, we did manage to obtain samples of that of the metal. So that's good for analysis. And it was, like I say, Barry mentioned as well, there was some metal bits on the smaller ones as well, across the chest and on the hand, and you don't really know what those represented, but you could clearly identify them on the X-rays.
What is, go on, sorry, Steve.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say what is interesting about that is you can clearly see on the X-ray the metal contained within these bodies.
Yeah.
You would expect, if they were hoaxes, you would expect to see pins holding the bones together. How is it done? If it is a fake, how then is it kind of sealed together?
That's a possibility. I mean, of course, glue could have been used to stick bones together, and we didn't see no identifications within any of the X-rays of any pins, apart from one metal, what they refer to as an implant, which was in one of the 24-inch bodies in its hip. And it had obviously an anomaly in its hip. One side of the hip was different to the other side of the hip, and one side, which was lower, had some type of metal disc thing inside it, and you clearly identify that on X-ray. I don't know what that represents. They have made speculations that it was some type of hip replacement, this, that, and the other, but we don't know. I mean, this is just, we just have no idea what that represents. But it was clearly visible.
I have to say, in regards to the metal pins, the idea of the metal pins, this is something Steve and I were also talking about, in that if we consider that these are fake, and if we consider that these are fake, this may not be a modern fake. This could be something which is hundreds of years old.
Yeah, there is that possibility. It could be. I mean, we don't necessarily have to be looking at something modern. I mean, what was interesting, there were a couple of interesting things on the smaller bodies. The fact that skin did seem to be visible, especially around the back area, but it didn't look like human skin. It looked more like a reptile type skin, which was interesting, because we're dealing, if these are eggs and they are some type of reptile, then we'd understand that their breathing may be different, because it didn't seem to show any lungs on the X-rays, how they would have breathed. Even if, we were only assuming that they were breathing air. We're only assuming, it's an assumption. They could have been amphibian. At the end of the day, they had no ears, a lot like many amphibians and seals as well. So we have to take that into consideration. But it did move on. I mean, it kind of moved us on quite quickly. Even though I think we were there for about 4 hours or so. We got as much as we possibly could, but we brought another one out in a sitting position, which was missing its head. So that was good to see, because anatomically we could see how it might, if it was real, how it might have been able to maneuver its arms and legs. And that was in a sitting position. What was interesting about that is that you could see, with it missing its head, that you could see what looked to be like tissue, that looked to be like neck tissue. But then, are we dealing with something which has used parts of other animals, and we are likely looking at those sort of things? We just really don't know. It just adds more mystery to it, really.
It's crazy, isn't it? When you think about it, if Barry says what Barry says is right, these things, if they are fakes and they're hundreds of years old, that's a level of fakery for centuries ago that is just off the charts. I mean, even by today's standards, some of these things, if they are indeed not real, would be practically works of art.
Well, yeah, they could be. I mean, it could be, like Barry mentioned, there could be some representation like dolls, in representation of a deity, maybe.
I wanted to ask this question, because let's suppose for a moment, and we don't know until the findings come out, but if Maria is real, would it be possible then that, I guess, the ancients of Peru at that time may have built effigies almost of these creatures? In some ways to pay homage to it, as if it was a deity, or maybe even to try and, reanimate it in some strange way. Is that a possibility, guys?
Well, I think Barry can answer that really well, because he's done a lot of research into these type of beings with 3 fingers and things. Yeah.
I think the idea of the beings being replicas of what they were seeing, there is a possibility there, because when you then begin looking at Maria, we understand that she's already been dated, and the dating brings her back to the Middle Nazca period, which is around 1800 years ago. So are the small ones replicas of what they were seeing around Nazca at that time? Is quite possible. But the more research that has been done and is still ongoing will determine what really the truth is, because I know that as the clock was ticking, and Steve and I were trying to cover as much ground as possible, nerves were beginning to fray within the room, and the tension was beginning to rise, so we were competing against that, trying to get as much as possible with the waning time that we had left.
It must be so difficult that, because not only trying to conduct a painstaking research and to ascertain what exactly is taking place here, but you're also dealing with the fact that your life may be under threat as well, and or at least your wallet, maybe.
Well, yeah, we just didn't know how far we could push it, really. We were getting a bit wary as time was ticking, and of course, at the same time, we were still struggling to breathe. We had face masks on, for crying out loud, as well. On top of that, it was hard work. It really was. But just when we thought, we were coming to the end, out came a large box.
Ooh.
And the lid came off this box, and I looked over, and there was Maria, full-size body,
Jeez.
In a fetal position, being lifted out of this box and placed on the table right in front of us. I mean, all that went through my mind is, I've just forgotten everything I've seen. Nothing else nothing else exists apart from this now. It's like none of what I've just seen over the last couple of hours was important until I saw this, you know.
Yeah.
And I looked over at Barry, and he was a bit taken back, to say the least.
Were there any tears shed, gents?
I gotta say, Ian, that looking at all the other remains that were presented to us, it was very clinical, very very cold, and you know, it was like looking at roadkill, to be honest. There was nothing in it, and we were just there to document. However, when the lid came off this box, there was suddenly an air entered the room, and this was different. This thing, whatever it was, this was a game changer. And this is something that we rarely hear anyone speak about, because I gotta say that, yes, as the cameras were rolling and I was behind the cameras, Steve could see that I was being affected by whatever was happening within the room, and I just kept recording. That's all I could do, was just keep recording, and I couldn't stop the tears, and I don't know why.
Wow.
This affected me in a way which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
Now, all I can say, Ian, is that if the only way I can describe this is that whatever the main trunk of this body is, I'm not saying whether the 3 fingers or 3 toes are real. I'm saying what the main trunk of this body was the only way I can describe it is that it was revered. And that was very, very apparent the moment that the plastic lid was lifted off that box. It filled the room. Now, if that was alive, I could not have entered that room.
Yeah.
I would have been crippled, emotionally crippled. I couldn't have done anything. I couldn't have been in the same room as that, whatever that was.
Wow.
Now you can well imagine, guys, the main point of us being there suddenly manifests onto the table, and I look over and I think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my cameraman.
He's having a wobble.
Yeah, especially
honestly,
something you didn't expect to see.
Honestly, I thought it's the altitude, but then I realised his tears rolling down his face. He's red, he's blood red, and he looks up at me and he just says, "Oh my God!"
Wow.
And I thought, I'm thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to lose my cameraman. What's up with him?" You know. And I have to admit, I was taken back by Maria. I mean, she's, by all intents and purposes, she's a full body. She's missing her ears. She does seem to have larger eye sockets than normal. She has a slightly elongated head, which could be down to boarding, we don't know. But this is a real body. According to the rib count, it more than likely would make her a female if we were going by the normal means of a human body. And about maybe 5'2" to 5'6", and maybe about 5'6" in height if she was outstretched. Her arms and legs generally pretty much the same as the humans. There has been some talk about the slight alteration in her arms between the 2 bones in the arm being slightly more separated than a human, but that's debatable. But the most prominent thing was the fact that she had no ears, a very small nose, it seemed to have a packed mouth, but the hands and the feet, they're extremely long fingers and toes, and only 3 of them, no thumbs. Dermal ridging on the toes could clearly be seen, and we got photos of that. And we spent a long time on Maria. I
can imagine.
And the X-rays and the scans and everything. And do you know what? We were blown away. If this is fake, it's been done exceptionally well, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've seen some things in the past, but this is. I couldn't see anything striking at all that led me to, in the slightest, led me to believe I could see any anatomical alterations purposely. But then again, I'm no expert at the end of the day. You know, we were there just to document as much as we possibly can.
You say that, Steve, but you guys have got 6 decades of research in these fields between you. There's pretty much not many more people in this field who could go out there and say one way or the other. And the fact that both of your reactions on that instance is, oh my God, we could actually be looking at this right now. You know, this could be real.
There was a bit of realism. There was a bit of realism there that we could be actually looking face to face at something that we've always hoped may have existed. And that's very realism on that. It's very profound feeling, actually.
To one purpose, it's like Fox Mulder getting the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing because once we'd done that was like the highlight of the evening. We got everything we want, and do you know what? We couldn't have got out of there fast enough, really, because we thought, oh my God, are they going to suddenly realise what we've got here on film?
They've actually given it us.
Yeah, and we literally walking backwards when we were leaving.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, bye.
Yeah, and we got in that car and we went, and this guy took us back, and do you know what? It was probably the most silent trip we've ever had back. Because I just don't really recall much conversation on the way back to the hotel. I think we were just both mulling everything over in our heads and trying to fathom what has just happened.
Yeah,
you know?
numb in some way.
It really was, and I got to say that there have been some schools of thought as to what Maria actually was, and I got to learn a lot of these whenever I came back after seeing her. And there was one particular group out there of remote viewers who were claiming that that she was killed. This is something that Steve and I discussed whenever we were out there, because Maria came with a spiritual signature which was exceptionally potent, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And compared to the others were just flatliners. There was nothing with them. But she was exceptionally potent. And not only that, but as Steve has said, her mouth seemed packed, and also one of her eyes seemed packed out with something behind it. And this was something that was seen within Nazca. With someone who was sacrificed, they used to pack the eyes and the mouth, and this may tie in with what the remote viewers possibly were picking up on. Who knows? Of course, Steve and I can't say anything until part 2. But
damn you!
but you know what? There was a lot of things looking the same way. When we were there dealing with this, and as Steve has already pointed out, not only were we dealing with Wicaros, the grave robbers, the black market, drives up into the mountains, going to God knows where, but we also had the government on the other side, who we were contending with as well, because they had their agenda as well. No, we understood the agenda. We understood that, my God, the government needs to really claim fake on these artifacts to devalue them so that they won't leave Peru. And we totally get it, because I would be furious in Ireland here if I thought that our stuff was being robbed and sent across to different parts of the world. I would be livid. So I understand the national pride that people have there and trying to keep their artifacts within the country and trying to devalue it. However, it was the way that they were trying to devalue it was the problem.
Yeah, that was the problem. It was more noticeable as soon as we headed back to Lima, because once we got back to we got dropped off at Cusco, and the driver didn't say anything, just dropped us off, and off he went. And we spent the night in conversation looking over the video footage, and then it suddenly dawned on us that we thought we best get out of Dodge because these guys changed their mind and come back for the video footage. You know where we are, So we got out of Dodge. We went the following day. We got out and we flew to Lima, back to Lima, which was I planned to do so anyway, but we went a little bit earlier, and we wanted to meet up with the people who are putting together the first international press conference. It was in Lima, in the capital, and Jaime Maussan was appearing there along with his doctors. It had some involvement, so it gave us the opportunity to talk with these guys and interview them, and we were there officially to film the event on behalf of the Inkari Institute. And we didn't realise what sort of problems we were actually going to walk straight into. We thought we were walking away from the problems. Until we got to Lima, we didn't realise that when it come to the government side of things, we were walking dead straight into them.
So Steve, so your life's at risk. Possibly both of your relationships are at risk. You're involved. You could potentially get 10 years just for handling this thing. You're unaware at the moment whether it's real or not. You've got a huge riddle on your hands. And now you're uncovering a huge kind of black market into this, and I guess government involvement in trying to shut down this black market. You said then, guys, that you went over to Lima and you go to the official, I guess, press announcement about this. What happened there?
Oh, Barry tell you that one. That was really.
Well, when we arrived in, we needed to get permission to film and keep everything above board, and so we set out to make that happen. And I was greeted by the hotel manager, who said that I'm sorry, we can't sign this until we get permission from the person who was paying for this press conference. And then when we get permission from them, then we will sign your paperwork. Okay, that's straightforward, I thought. So we waited on the members of the Ankara Institute to come along, and I frog marched them to the front desk. And they said, no, sorry, we can't because they're not paying for it. Although it's for the Ankara Institute, we need the person who's actually paying for the event,
right,
to sign this off. Okay, so off we went, and we found the person who was in the hotel, and we told him what had happened. He was furious. He sent an email to the hotel telling them we had the permission. So I went trottled down all the way down to the front desk again, because, by the way, we're only allowed to go to the floor that we're on. We can't go to any other floor. The security has locked everything down. And so I went back to the front desk and I said, okay, the email has been sent. I'm sorry, but that email needed to go to the person who's dealing with this account. And by the way, that came from the boss. We need the email from the secretary who's dealing with this. And I thought, this is getting impossible. And it kept going on like this. It was back and forward. And security was continually being upgraded. And I got to say that when we did arrive in Lima, there was a huge blanket put over the whole announcement, because no one, it seems, in Lima knew that this was going ahead. Even the hotel, we were saying we're here for the press conference, and they're going, what press conference?
Yeah, they were actually. There was a couple of people even turned away. Yeah, it was just crazy. It didn't make any sense. An international press conference with no filming, people being turned away by the staff, saying we don't know anything about this. It was crazy. They even told us that. Wasn't even up on the board.
Oh, wow. And then finally, to finally add insult to injury, they came along and said, the hotel manager said, okay, we need to know who you're going to interview. We need their names. And we also need to know if they're staying in the hotel. And I thought, why on earth do you need that? He never got them, by the way.
Yeah.
But, the whole thing was just becoming very precarious very quickly.
It was. I mean, the press, the Peruvian government had done their own announcement just the night before the actual event. And they got, how many doctors had they got together, Barry?
There was thousands of doctors from across South America had come together to say that all these were fake, and we got to point out, and this was something that Steve and I were furious about, that this was a scientific community coming together to add their weight to a mystery, basing their understanding and their theory on what they could scrounge off the internet.
Yeah,
because none of them had actually ever put a finger on any of the artifacts.
And you guys have seen them by this point.
No, we had seen them by this point.
Well, I mean, you can well imagine, yeah, if we've been there, we've examined them, we've touched them, we've looked over them, we've looked at the scans, the x-rays, we took the photographs, the videos, we've been there. If we can't conclude, how can they do it? These are professional doctors from all over the country. So obviously it seemed to be a ploy just to to create this blanket of doubt on the authenticity of these things. You know, they wanted to let the country know that these things are fake, no matter, without questioning how they even knew that.
Even if they're real.
Even if they're real.
They want to drive down the price and this black market trade, I guess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I can well imagine come the following morning when there's a press announcement, we went out for breakfast, you know, and obviously by the time we arrived back, it was like that had arrived. It was an absolute chaos. Absolute chaos, it really was. There was people coming in from all over the world with different cameras, being told they can't film. We couldn't even get, we've got official identification in Inkari Institute badges with the official people filming the event done by the Inkari Institute. We couldn't even get into the room where it was being done. They wouldn't even allow us into the rooms where it was being done. And you know what? We went backwards and forwards, and of course it got to a point where the time was ticking, wasn't it? And it was getting closer to it, wasn't it, Barry?
Oh my God, yeah. I was told that, okay, we'll give you permission. You just need to see our representative in the morning at 7:30 when she comes in, the morning of the press conference. I arrived on at 7:30. She won't be on until 8:30. Oh. She won't be on until 9:30. By that stage, we had just give up, and we pushed our way through security. We brought the cameras and we set up along with everyone else who had come through and pushed through security with their cameras and set up for the international press conference.
Oh, silly beggars doesn't cover it, does it?
Ridiculous, it really was. And just to add insult to injury, eventually, I mean, you put back 20 minutes the whole event, you know, because of the messing about. But when it did finally kick off the event, Jaime picks up the microphone and he's just about to start his words of speech, and a tremendous thumping, banging sound. Yeah,
coming from the back room.
Oh, you couldn't hear what he was saying. He was on the microphone because these were so loud, the bangs. And I went over to Barry and went, "Oh my God, what's that sound?" And he was saying, I don't know, you know, and it was just chaos. People were turning the cameras off because the actual event had to come to a stop.
Yeah.
Now, I went over to the door and I'm saying to the staff, what's going on? You know, we've had to stop the event. What's all the noise? What's all the banging? And they just looked at me with these plain faces as if they haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. You know, and nobody seemed to be really interested in doing anything about it. That's why it came to a grinding halt. People from all around the world were switching the cameras off. We just kept them rolling. You know, we were filming them to turn it off. Filmed the whole event because it was ridiculous, wasn't it, Barry?
Oh, it was. And it was really becoming farcical. But you know, we just persevered, and we kept pushing on, and we started to collect more of the data.
What was interesting about the press announcement, though, is because there had been a lot of hype around this press announcement, considering there had been already some work already carried out by the Inkari Institute and a number of other independent people in little bits and bobs of analysis that have been released. And we thought, okay, we're going to get the DNA. We're actually going to get the DNA results. And of course, we waited and waited and waited. And you know what? They weren't delivered.
That's the big one.
Exactly. This is the world's first official press announcement in the capital of Lima. Everybody's watching from all around the world on these cameras. They were even going out live stream. And I looked over at Barry and I said, "Where's the DNA results?" Didn't I? And you were quite shocked because it just didn't happen, did it, Barry?
Yeah, no, I couldn't believe that this press conference, they had tried to raise the awareness of this press conference so much, and then finally it gets there and it goes down like a wet balloon.
Yeah, I mean, is this just the way it works in Peru, or is this just the shambolic organization, or is there perhaps something a little bit more nefarious to this? Is somebody trying to hijack it?
I think basically it was a premature announcement. Bottom line is that they were trying to gain the interest long before it was deserved. I think that they shouldn't have done anything. They sent the infantry out, but they left the cannons at home, and you don't do that.
Yeah.
Unlike us, we're going to deliver everything in one fell swoop. Nothing left.
Oh, part two.
Is this part two, Barry?
It's more teaser.
It is. Well, you know what? This is what you do. You deliver your cannons. This is what people don't want to come to a press announcement and learn everything that they've already read on the internet, and that's what basically was happening. You know, no new material. To be honest with you, doctors were there, you know, putting their 2 pence worth in, but they weren't really. You know, it was very clever about how they might talk about these things because without having to turn around and say, I believe it's alien, you know, they were saying that what makes it look not human, you know? And of course, it's about omitting certain things that should have may have been said. I think that was an important issue. And we did have these opportunities to ask these questions. And finally, after a lot of messing about, considering that we were only tied to the floor we could go on by this time, yeah, I wanted to interview Jaime. Jaime said, come to my room. I can't come to your room, Jaime, because I need your card. Well, how do I get to my room if you've got my card? Well, what about you come to mine? Oh, you can't come to mine. So it was a lot of messing about. Eventually, we got it sorted. And we interviewed Jaime, we interviewed two of the Spanish doctors. And of course, basically, they're saying, yes, it's unusual. You can't find any anatomical anomalies that might suggest that it's been manufactured. And all these other wonderful things. And apparently the ectomaceous earth was mentioned, that was the compound. However, nothing about the chain of custody, nothing about where the DNA samples were taken from, the procedure, how. And as I pointed out to many people, when we look at the very first piece of footage, which went out over the internet, I believe it was done by Gaia, you've got Mera on the top of a roof in the day, drawing sunlight, out in the environment. You've got troves of people around and not in suitable clothing for an examination, all touching it, all having a good examination and looking at, and it's just not scientific. And yet,
they were more scientific when they virtually kidnapped you.
Yeah,
you mean virtually, Chris?
Well, he said yes, so you can't really argue.
Yeah, you can't call it a kidnapping if you say yes.
I believe so.
But you kind of miss. I was kind of missing their point really, because it was all very, looks all very scientific, but then it was lacking so much of it, which was a shame really. And for me, I had 1,001 questions which couldn't have been answered. And of course, this was again just for the Spanish-speaking people. There wasn't really anything in English, and it was a real struggle. And thank God we had a fantastic, translator with us that helped us out. And we talked with numerous different people who were from Nazca, who claim that their ancestors talked about three-fingered beings and all sorts of things. And it was a fantastic amount of wealth of information that we obtained, including Inkari being generous enough to provide all the reports to us, scans, photographs, on top of the mountain that we've already got of our own material. And what we actually plan to do is, and as you'll see unfold in episode 2, is that there was a second trip. It's no secret. There was a second trip. Oh. There is even people out there which are mailing and talking, saying Barry is actually in Peru at this moment in time.
Is he?
Barry, are you in Peru?
Hello,
world exclusive.
People kept asking, "What's Barry doing in Peru? What's Barry doing in Nazca?" and he's not. He's here. He's at home. And of course, there was a lot of suspicion. And the thing is, there was a commission for us to go back to gain a chain of custody, the right type of samples that were obtained, and they were mailed to us. They were sent to us specifically and conducted as it's supposed to have been.
So, are you suggesting, Steve, that you have the DNA evidence?
We're suggesting that we have every sample that was necessary, professionally taken, at the right places, as it's supposed to be, from numerous different places that it was necessary to take them to get that right amount of information. And we've got a mountain of stuff, and they are trickle feeding in these results, and we've got a little bit more to do, but it's going to be tremendous, the results. And the good thing is that we decided to go to the best we could possibly do. We don't want to go to any head doctors, if there is any out there, or have been dealing with the case. We don't want to, get third parties involved. We want it direct. We want the best people involved doing the best DNA. And so it's not questionable. People can't sit around and say, well, why didn't you get this guy? Why didn't you get that? We've gone for professors. We've gone for leading DNA, world-leading specialists, which are going to conduct certain types of DNA that's never even hardly heard of.
Wow.
And hopefully what will come out of this is that we'll have the leading response on all of the DNA results that have been taken so far. And that will tell us exactly what the situation is. But I can also tell you that we're halfway through that now, is that we also have information already about numerous different things, and we can't share that, unfortunately.
Tune in for part 2.
It's going to be fascinating, isn't it, Barry?
Oh, it is. Yeah, it really has turned out to be something thrilling. Yeah.
Wow.
for sure.
Wow. When's the motion picture out, guys?
It's more like an X-Files, and one of those where the first 5 minutes is catch up from the last episode.
Previously on Nazca Peru.
Well, we're looking probably around about maybe the end of the month, the beginning of October for the second release. And of course, the good thing about our professors is that they're willing to go on film. They're willing to state their names.
Brilliant.
They're willing, and these guys have spent a lifetime. They've got awards from all around the world. These guys are the guys. And I would never trust it with anybody else's hands, really, but these, because they just know exactly what they're doing.
So they're completely independent and fully professional, Steve. I mean, you've not just found anybody to do this. You've gone, like you say, to the leading experts in the world.
There's no connection between us and them whatsoever. They're not tied into the case. There's no connections, and that's what's really good. There's a proper chain of custody, because they said there has to be a proper chain of custody, because also examining, which we didn't know, there's a special procedure for examining anything that might be over 1,000 years old.
Oh, okay.
That's not even been taken in lightly, and at the end of the day, we've got all the other results that have been done so far by other people, and our professors have looked at them, and I can't tell you what they said about them. But I tell you, it's going to be very, very interesting what's going to develop from this.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
I'm already. Can we not do it tomorrow?
But it is still unfolding, guys. It's still unfolding. Every single day we're working, and things are being found, new material, new information. We've had communications with the Peruvian government. We're quite happy to work with them, and assisting them in regards trying to obtain get a museum in Nazca. They want the bodies, and the bottom line is, I think I speak for both of us here, is that I think what we really want from this is not only just the truth coming out, but the body needs protection, especially Mera and Wiki, because they're real bodies and they are degrading. I can tell you now, we know that from looking at the first video, don't we, Barry?
Yeah, very much so.
So, Steve, explain to me this. What did you mention? Like the chain of
custody.
Barry will explain that. Chain of custody.
Chain of custody. That's it.
The chain of custody is where samples have to be taken, documented, and then they're shipped to the university. So everything had to be checked, double checked, and sealed, and shipped out, and then it's received at the university site.
Yeah, and that's video logged without any breaks, and it's as it happens, it's dated, time stamped to the lot. And it's just like a police investigation would happen.
I was going to say, Steve, I mean, I guess this sort of chain of custody is to make sure that the samples are taken correctly. There's no contaminants. You're not, accidentally sampling something that isn't the body itself or whatever, that they're being treated in the right way. So they're being preserved. I mean, it's literally, almost a military operation, isn't it?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, and I think any other scientist out there, I mean, I'm no scientist, but any scientist out there will probably tell you that it's a complete waste of time, a complete waste of time doing anything with DNA unless you've got a chain of custody, with that evidence, because without that, it could be anything. It could be taken from anywhere, by anyone, at any time. And this is where everybody else seems to have failed. No matter how much information they keep putting out left, right, and centre, and all these different people have been involved since myself and Barry got over there, is that nobody seems to be providing the real information about the chain of custody. Is there a chain of custody? Where were the samples taken from? When were they taken and whom by? All we're getting is samples these are the results from samples taken from Mera. Well, that's not good. No, that's not good enough. I need to know where from, when, and why, and who, and a chain of custody. We need to know that is actually, authentic. Otherwise, the data's biased straight away. Yeah.
And we could be talking about the greatest discovery of humankind, in the last however long, it's world changing if this stuff is true. So if you can't prove 100% what it is or where the sample came from, then you've got almost no argument, have you?
You haven't. And to be honest, and a lot of your listeners are going to be hearing this, I'm going to know straight away about the controversy that surrounds this case. And that's because some people believe Jaime Maussan has been involved in numerous different cases like this before, and there's been some hokey things going on. I don't know if that's the case. What I can say is that, yes, it would seem that there's been rational explanations that have been found for these things. If Jaime wasn't aware, then he's, unfortunately, he's been just been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
These are previous things that Jaime's been involved with, yeah.
Exactly. Now, with Jaime being involved in this one, straight away people jumped on Jaime and said, look, he manufactured them. And we can tell you, categorically, myself and Barry know this, that Jaime is not involved in the construction of these. He was brought in, these were around before Jaime was involved. We know that much as evidence. So we can certainly say that for sure. In regard, people will suggest that numerous people have been drip feeding information and trying to gain sort of monetary value from it and stuff like that. It happens. I can understand that. It's very difficult not to get, at the end of the day, what people don't take into consideration sometimes is how much money is involved in traveling around the world, staying in places, film crews, even conducting analysis can be a ridiculous amount of price, so I can understand gaining something back from what you put out, but doing it in the right way and being honest, being truthful, being transparent. We're there to just deliver the truth, and that's all we're prepared to do. We don't get into belief systems. We don't start pointing the finger at people. Mistakes are made on the way by people. I understand that. That's easily done in cases like this. It's happened before. It'll happen again. But we're not there to illuminate that. We're there just to provide the evidence and how it's come about. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to miss it. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get away from the fact that we might have to re-question some of these doctors. We might have to. There's all that plausibility about it. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who have talked about the controversy and basically said, I've had countless emails. I couldn't count them saying, Steve, you're wasting your time. I'll tell you now, wasting your money and wasting your time is fake. Well, that's okay, and I can get that, But then for me, it's about the evidence. For me, it's about going. I'm sure it is for Barry as well. It's exactly the same thing. We can all. What happens one day when a real gem comes forward? Is it a cry?
This is it.
The cry wolf syndrome, and it could slip through our fingers, couldn't it?
I mean, you made that point as well there, Steve. That that Jaime Maussan effectively, because of his prominence within the field in South America, is probably the guy that's been asked to get involved. He hasn't discovered them. He's not the one with the story of seeing the live beings and stuff like this. It's something that he's latterly been involved with because of who he is. But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, can you? In this instance, just because there may be that in the past, you still have to take this as a separate case and do the research thoroughly to the best of your ability and transparently, so you can actually ascertain what it is that we're dealing with, as opposed to kind of sit back on the internet and go, "Oh, Jaime Maussan must be fake."
Well, yes, it's easily done, and unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff like that in the subject that does happen that way. And don't get me wrong, 9 times out of 10, these guys are right when they say it. It might have been a waste of money, it might have been a waste of time for them. But for me, it won't be, because it's a life-changing experience, no matter what the outcome is.
The reality is you are going to bring the truth out one way or the other. So it's absolutely worth what you've done to go out there, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'd encourage anybody, if they ever had the opportunity and the expense to do so, to do that. Because, for me, when I was brought up into this subject, I was taught by my peers, some of which are still alive and still doing the subject, is that you got to prove the negative. It is equally important to prove the negative. Don't assume, prove the negative. And that's proper investigative process. Myself and Barry have been doing this for a long time. We know that we have to go the full length of it. We thought that it might be all nailed in episode 2, but as things are unfolding and the things that we're finding out, we wouldn't even dread to say over the radio. I even lead into an episode 3 because, oh my God, you would not believe how deep this rabbit hole really goes.
Wow. So we're dealing with, in conclusion, then we're dealing with a number of mummies, particularly Maria, that the jury's still out as to whether or not this is real or not. If it's real, it will change the world. If it's not, it's an incredible fake that we've probably never seen before. You've got a secret trade, a black market that's moving these things to Europe and the to the Far East. And then you've got the government who are trying to clamp down on it and keep these antiquities within the country, whether they are desecrated graves of people who lived thousands of years ago within that area, or they're even something much more important. Boys, we've pretty much run out of time, but what I want to do to finish is, Barry, can you, in your beautiful dulcet Polish tones, just give us like a promo for episode 2 as to what we might expect?
Episode 2, in episode 2, we really shine the light on the mythology and folklore of these beings and track them right around the planet. Not only that, but we also then venture into the world of the scientific community to bring back, and we say bring back because there's still more travel to be done. We bring back the results, and we expose the truth to what these things are.
Wow, I was hoping you were going to say we have the answers. We will bring out the truth.
Well,
we've already got some. Let's just say, we've been in touch with archaeologists, anthropologists. We've already got a wealth of information. You know, before we even get to the trickle feed of DNA coming through, we've got metal analysis coming through. That will be the next thing within the next few days. And then we've got the standardized carbon-14, just to confirm what's been also confirmed allegedly. And then we've got the standardized DNA process, maybe even go to mitochondrial or even beyond that. Wow. New methods in DNA research that people are unaware about, which is at the forefront of the universities that we're actually using. So, you know, that's a real eye opener for us. But there's going to be a huge amount of information, and not just that as well, but the workings of things that we've discovered from the Peru side, you know, and maybe the government and the commerce. And, you know, I just think it's going to be really hard to get all this into another episode, because it's just unfolding every single day, the new information that we're getting, people contacting us, you know, and the talks that we're having with people. It's looking like we really are going to have to do an episode 3 and go really down that rabbit hole and trace this all the way back, because this is just the tip of the iceberg, I think. As far as I'm concerned, it would seem that it goes very, very deep.
Are we going to need flak jackets?
Flak jackets, did you say?
Yeah.
Just take that watch, Barry. That's all you'll need.
Yeah, that's all you need.
And that bottle of whiskey.
You can't go anywhere without the whiskey.
Yeah, so it's available to watch. Full episode 1 how long is it, Barry? Is it it's about an hour and?
It's an hour. I think it's an hour and 40 minutes. I think.
Yes, it's an hour and 40 minutes. That takes us right from where we are now, from where we were, right through to the whole trip and how that came about, and of course you might be able to even notice the worry. We took out a lot of things out of that episode, such as the worry and the stress, and we wanted to make it punchy. It is raw. There was no storyboarding, but literally Barry just put the camera on me and said, "Right, let's go, talk," you know. And that's how it is, and that's exactly as it is. So, because people said, "Oh God, look at this Englishman fumbling his words." Well, yeah, I was, because
12,000 feet.
Yeah, it was raw. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what was going to happen, and honestly, I didn't know what was going to come of it all. To be honest with you, but we just blindly going into it, in the sense of speaking. But do you know what? It kind of worked out, and afterwards, looking at it, I think, "Oh my God," you know. But I don't know if I'd venture all that way and do those things again, because I don't know if we're brave enough. You know, I mean, I'm tempted to take
knowing what you know now.
Knowing what I know now, but yeah, seriously, the hour and 40 minutes will take everybody through that process, and we'll see it for themselves, and then that'll lead into episode 2. They can watch that on the YouTube channel UFO and Ancient Mysteries Network TV, UAMN TV. But I think it's also available through zoharstargate.com as well.
Absolutely, and that's out there on YouTube, Steve.
It is. It's available free on YouTube to watch. Yes, it is.
Brilliant. I can't wait, gents, for part 2. This is quite simply, for me, probably the most interesting and fascinating story from 2017. And more's the point, the fact that you guys have gone out and done it in the way in which you've done it, looking at the actual evidence and trying to gather as much data as possible and tell it exactly as it is what really separates you two guys. And I'm really pleased for you for doing that, actually. I'm really pleased for everybody in the field, because it's what we need, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think Barry will agree with me. He definitely needs that type of research. I know it's not for everybody. I know it's difficult with the expense of travelling these days, but I'd say if anybody's got the opportunity to do so, do it. Because you know what? It doesn't matter about the results at the end of the day. You've done it. You've found your own results and conclusions. Who else can confront that? You know, it's very difficult to do that from the front of a computer.
The two men in possession of the biggest story of 2017 in terms of the weird and the strange and the odd. Steve Mera and Barry Fitzgerald, thanks very much for speaking to us tonight on the Asylum.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And CK, thanks for joining me as well. I can't wait for part 2.
My mind is blown. It's been blown.
Dude, wait till part 2 and part 3. I'm guessing this is going to get a lot more crazy.
I hope so.
Wicked. Thanks for that, gents.
Thanks a lot.
Asylum.